Welcome to the Unsidelined Life, the podcast that challenges and encourages women to stop denying themselves a full life and to step boldly into the opportunities God is preparing for you. Join me for raw insights and engaging conversations to guide your journey of self-discovery and pursue the life that God created for you. Welcome to the Unsidelined Life. This is your host, Eileen Noyes, with episode 1, I would have to call it. So if you guys saw the trailer, you're kind of seeing and hearing what this podcast is all about. And so I was thinking about, like, what do I talk about? What's the first thing? And I just want to share my stories with you. There's a song that I wish you guys need to hear. It's called Storyteller by Jamie Grace and Morgan something. If you hear that song, that is totally my heart and my passion. And so there's a couple things I wanted to do. This whole podcast thing, I knew that it was going to happen. I think it's just like the inclination or inkling that, like, okay, I know this is going to do it. I don't know when, because, with 8 kids, trying to write the books, all these things, stepping into the coaching space, stepping into like mentorship, speaking, all these different things that I like to do. Like I said, this is where I was like, oh my gosh, this podcast thing is the opportunity for me to kind of be efficient in this, because it just works in my life right now. It just works with my lifestyle. One thing that you're going to see is I am mom, and that door over there will probably just, I don't lock it, because if I lock it, I'd hear knocking. And then I'd have to leave here. So that door may pop open, and my 6-year-old, my 10-year-old, all the way up to my 21-year-old, they may come in. So that's just my life. And so, with this whole thing about the podcast, I want to just tell you something that happened, a couple things like that. One thing that happened when things were great. So you'll know this, or you'll understand about me, is I am a writer at heart. I've always loved to write. I journaled, and I didn't realize that, who would have known that, or who would have thought that I would be writing books. Now I'm an author. Based off what I see and hear, I have, and here's the thing, I can acknowledge I have the gift of writing, and there's no pride in that. That's the one thing about identity, is when you know who you are, you can embrace these gifts that God has given me without feeling bad to say, I have this gift. I like to write. I know I like to write. I believe that I'm a good writer. I believe that people glean and are touched and are changed through my writing. Now, I will say that promoter, sales, marketing, those aren't what I'm good at. And so the podcast space allows me to be able to talk, to share things that aren't in the books, and then at the same time to be able to point to those books. And writer is in me so strong. And this is the thing that I've had to kind of come to as I've come into this space of wanting to write, wanting to do all these things, and then doing them and seeing, okay, what does fit? What do I really love? And so I'm coming to that space, and it's interesting because I never would have thought that like a podcast would be a big part of it. I'm not sure what order I'm going to put it in. Like I said, I'm just housing these conversations. My first official interview is with June McKenzie. And so I wanted to kind of get introductions going with this. I will talk about how I know her, and then we can just kind of feed off. So June McKenzie, I believe your husband was player personnel when I got in. Is that right? Do you remember?
Yes. In 2001, you said you guys started. Yes. I'm not quite sure what his quote unquote title was, because we came to the Packers in 93.
Okay. You were there for a while.
Take that back. June of 94.
Okay.
So he came as a scout, and he wore several hats over the 18 years that we were there. So I don't know what his official title was, but his primary responsibility was to scout.
Okay.
And um, so by the time you guys got there, 2001, we would have been all four children at that point.
Oh, yep, yep, yep. I remember that. Yeah.
Yep, we would have
Yeah.
been all four children. Jalen would have been going on 2 years old. He was our 1999 baby.
Okay.
So we would have had our hands full, four
Yeah.
under the age at that point.
Yeah. I remember meeting your girls. I remember, I think it was, I don't know if it was at a social gathering, or something. And so I remember it was outside of a Packer thing. So it was some sort of family function. And it might have been at your house. It was at someone's house. I remember meeting your girls, and it was just like, I don't know, I was almost intimidated by them because they were so cool. It's like the weirdest thing. And then also we may have gone to the same churches, like, just kind of yeah, I think that might have been the case. But yeah, so you go from there. Like I said, and you were also one of the first Christian women that I met. And so that was like, because that was where my eyes were going, like this whole thing about stepping into a whole new world. I'm from California. I moved to Green Bay. I mean, I had a full life, knew a bunch of people, knew who I was, knew my role, knew my purpose in California. I literally get on a plane, fly to Green Bay. That same day, I get married. So it's like no big wedding. It's two players and their wives who I didn't know, a pastor I didn't know. And so it's just like stepping into a whole new world and a whole new identity. And so my eyes were searching for, like, who can I connect with? Who are women that know, like, God, for one, and who kind of will just like kind of paved the way for me. And so you're one of those, and you probably didn't even know that I was like observing, And so that's just the world that we kind of like have live in, and that's just the dynamics of what's going on. So yeah, you can go ahead and you know introduce yourself. Sorry, I'm not trying to get this thing.
No
I'm
problem.
recording this in too.
And that brings up so many things that I could say, but I'm going to start with what I kind of started with
Okay.
when we were
Yeah,
talking
go for it.
about being a wife and reality shows where people really aren't wives. And I remember my introduction to the Raiders, Los Angeles Raiders, when I met my husband. I was a Southerner, and all I thought about was being a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. So the prospect of meeting an NFL player, I didn't even know what that concept even was. Eating, meeting a professional player, period, just wasn't a concept for me. So when I met my husband, and as they say, the rest is history. I grew into that, and even now that we're almost 40 years into this, just seeing the transitions, just seeing the fact that people go out and buy jerseys when back in the day we didn't even think about buying a jersey, right? It was his jersey from one of his practice jerseys. I mean, I literally still have some. I mean, I literally just
That's cool.
maybe about 5 years ago, took some tape off of one he had put around the waist or whatever, and the tape was deteriorating. It's just like, wow, look at how this has evolved, right?
Yes.
And
Wow.
stuff. So in 2001, when you guys came to the Packers, like I said, we would have had four kids at that time. We would have been very entrenched in Providence Academy. So it may have
Right.
been Providence Academy type of
Yes,
function,
it was
because the
the
thing
one
that
that introduced me to that school.
that was what I was going to say. The thing that sticks out in my mind about our first introduction was we were actually at your home, and I learned that Kabir did not like hot dogs or something like that, something we were cooking.
Work.
And it just stuck in my head, right? Like, because I was like, if there's a sporting event, where's my chili dog? That was where I was at, right? So hearing that like really stuck in my head, like, what are you talking about?
Who can I trust? Who do I, who really sincerely wants to know me? And so the good thing is, I think in my mind, people had to kind of go through different, different levels and different, like, I don't want to say hoops, but you just get to where, okay, these are solid, these are like true friendships. And so they stuck because I think I put like different walls up and made sure they passed. And so it's definitely harder to like get to that friend place of trust. But yeah, I mean, I love that. Yeah, that you're bringing up things that like I haven't.
Generally, too, I'd say there's a nervous energy in the persons that are approaching you because of what you do and who you're attached to than who you are.
Yes.
And like once I was able to identify that they all had this particular feel to them and their approaches, I just learned to be courteous, but not allow those people into my life.
Okay, so outside, like what were your other challenges as in the biggest time frame of like of him playing? I mean, did you travel with him or you
Yeah, I traveled with him every time, so it was difficult because they get
how many
picked.
teams? It's like 4 teams, 3 teams.
Vikings, Redskins, Raiders, Bears, 4 in 5 years.
Okay.
So a lot of it was actually like me having to pick up the pieces and create homes every place we went. He would just drop on the drop of the dime. And every time we moved or he hurt himself, I was either pregnant or had just given birth.
Oh my God.
And so it was just like, and it was all left on me.
Yes.
To do everything. And we were always trying to be exceedingly frugal. So most of the times, unless the team was covering it, so like when he got cut from the Redskins, picked up by the Raiders, there's like, oh, we'll pay for everything to be moved. So luckily I just like was able to, I mean, essentially like they just came and did everything. So I just had to like, but I needed help because I had Trey, who was I think like 9 months at the time, and I had a huge dog, who's like part Great Dane, part pit bull. Okay. And I was like, I can't handle these two on my own. Like, what if I have to pee? I was like, the plane bathrooms are too small. So I called Brandon, who was his best friend and who was just a gem. Like almost every time too that we moved or got cut, Brandon just so happened to be there. If he wasn't happened to be there, I called him with the Redskins. Was like, hey, where are you? And he's like, I'm in an airport. I'm like, would you come to Virginia and fly with me from Virginia to California? And he did. He was like,
wow,
give me a little bit. And so he did it. He came, he flew with me. He helped me find where to live in California. We walked through the ghettos of Oakland together. And I was like, I feel like I'm going to get shivved. And he was like, and he was like, well, I think there's a fancy place, Walnut Creek. So like, he was just so knowledgeable. He was just, and he and I are still friends, even though,
Is he still friends with him?
I am. Yeah, I call him.
No, is he still friends with?
Oh, is TJ still friends with him? From what Brandon says, I mean, like when I think Brandon said the last time he saw him was like 2 years ago in the spring, but like, no, like the only time he's no, I mean that's his story, and I don't want to say anything in case TJ wrote this. Like Brandon, but Brandon is so the protection of Brandon.
Yes, got it.
I can assume that TJ will hear because your ex is obsessed with you, so he will watch this.
Yeah, interesting. I still I don't talk too much about my situation. I haven't even here I'm asking everybody else questions and I haven't, unless people ask me, I have not talked totally openly about it. Like people will ask about the books that I've written and I say I don't even talk about it's been very vague. So you had mentioned the Sports Illustrated there's that three-day article. And so that same journalist partnered up with someone else. And so we were both part of a podcast that is going to be 8 weeks. And it's supposed to be end of summer in the fall. And so that's
who knows? Because they've been saying they've been giving us dates forever.
Yes. Yeah. So I would say that's the most like open I've been. And then a couple times. And I think more so, but yeah, I mean, it's
didn't you have a blog where you talked about it and crap?
I mean, yeah, there were for sure blogs, but even there, it was more of not of being very like
painting broad strokes.
Yeah, very general with the hard stuff. And more because I wanted to give glory to God. I wanted it to be more that like God was faithful to take care of us. I mean, it's interesting because like when I start reading the first book and it's the one that's more obviously like pro athlete related. they, you know, one person was saying like, yeah, I was intrigued. I wanted to hear about your story. And I wanted to hear about, you know, your ex. And he goes, but as I went on with it, it wasn't even about him at all. It wasn't even about like wanting to like get to the juicy stuff. He was like, I was just kind of intrigued by where you'd gone with the book. And so yeah, so you know, as you say these things, like it is interesting. Like I spoke for the first time. I did a speaking engagement in Wisconsin, and I felt like God was saying you need to start there because you know,
your breeding ground.
yeah, like exactly. It's like, okay, like this is where the devil tried to steal. This is where testimony needs to begin. And it was interesting because I had heard that he read the book, that he knew I was in town. Yeah, just those things. So we're talking at least almost 20 years, right? And so
yes, 18 years. 18 years of me fighting basically for a marriage because I love Jesus and I grew up where you can get through anything. Don't quit on your marriage. Just pray for him, do everything. But what I realized, because I'm not an advocate for divorce, but you know, I grew up, if you're not equally yoked and the one that's not saved doesn't want to leave, you shouldn't leave either. And I think there's so many things that people get confused because God didn't bring our marriage together. That was Satan. And God would have never have put me in. And so when people are like, I don't believe in divorce, all these things, I think they just get confused because it wasn't God that brought us together. Like God wanted me to marry someone that was equally yoked with me, but in the flesh, I saw tall, dark, and handsome. Even 8 million red flags, you know, like you see the skits, like I just need a giant red flag. You know what I mean? It was just so many things. Like I even had like a panic attack the day I was eloping to him. I had a full blown panic attack, and it was almost like God saying, do not do this, child. I do not want this for you, but I did it. And so
wow.
I just was like, I'm going to do what I want to do. And, you know, I can say you reap what you sow. I don't regret it because I do have 4 gorgeous children, but what I've endured, I would not wish upon anybody. And I did, I loved him more than life, and I sacrificed every ounce of my worth and gave it all to him. And so at that point, but the thing is too, is he's an addict, full-blown addict, and then he's a narcissist. And I didn't understand narcissism because you don't have a class that's like when you go to psychology and stuff in college, they don't talk about narcissism. And so many people are actually talking about narcissism today and they want to use it left and right. But narcissism, everybody has narcissistic tendencies, but a true narcissist has no remorse, no, they're not empathetic, they're void. You almost see black in their eyes. They're doing the things they do to you and they don't care how much they hurt you. And so that actually trapped me for 18 years because I would say to myself, I know he's bad to me. I know he's bad. Why can't I leave? And I didn't realize the trauma bond that he had over me, or he held my self-worth in his hands. And until I understood, I guess people like to say the mind effery or screwery that they do to you, until I understood what was being done to me. And when it started, even when we started dating, the clarity is there. And the madder I get at myself for not loving myself or seeing the things that were being done to me, because he took advantage of how forgiving and how much I love Jesus, and he just stepped on it.
I'm a little bit like speechless as I hear this. And I thank you so much for your vulnerability. Like, especially, so we're talking, like I said, we haven't talked in a long time. And so all you see is like Facebook. I remember seeing pictures of you with the kids and then pictures of you with your ex. And so just that hope, like, oh my gosh, like, good, they're working it out. And so, like, so when did you make that decision, like finally? Because I thought even within the last couple of years, I thought you were working things out.
So that just plays into loving Jesus and forgiving. I needed to feel like I did everything under the moon and stars to save my marriage.
Yeah.
Which is more than most people. Most people do the boy and girl and they're done. And so And doing 4 is a lot. And then doing 4 single is insanity. But in 2023, his verbal abuse to the children and to I used to get all the verbal abuse, but in 2023, he had taken a new job and he hated the job. He hated his life. And then my kids were being the punching bag. And I thought, I'm not doing this. Like, you can make me the punching bag, but you picking my children apart, I'm not doing it. And so I planned like basically my escape plan next month, last October. So October of 23. And so, but we divorced in 2019. I divorced in 2019 because it was just, again, it's the narcissistic pattern. It's a trauma bond. Like, you just cannot break free from it. And people that have not experienced it don't know where I'm coming from. A lot of people will, you watch like the Stockholm syndrome where a man can kidnap a woman and she'll miss the kidnapper. It's the same thing with narcissistic abuse. You just don't understand what's being done to you till you have like a aha moment, and then you're done.
But I think of like Black Widow and how she had, I don't know, did you see that movie? Yeah. So her and her sister, it's like all of a sudden they have this truth, they have these gifts, and now they're just opening the eyes of all these other women who are strong but using it for the wrong thing. And I just think that's what we're meant to do.
I want to submit this to you. I have an encouraging prophetic word for you that I'm happy to give you privately or whenever. You just let me know, and then
if you don't mind now, let's do it now.
If you would okay, so let's do it now. Okay, so for everybody watching, here's how we do prophecy. Okay, and by the way, there are many people who talk about the prophetic as predicting the future, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. But I will tell you that the focus of my life is not about prediction of the future. It's about causing the future by walking with God. And so like Eileen, I was in a classroom thinking, Father, how can I bring something from your heart, a piece of your heart about your love and affection for Eileen? And here's what I saw. Eileen, I saw you on a football field, but you were not just on the field. It's funny because you were on the side. But on the side, Eileen, I saw that you were championing, like when I say many women, I mean many, many women. And I saw that there was something in your hands. And I asked, what is that in Eileen's hands? And I don't know what this means. I didn't have time to look this up, but I saw a golden football in your hands. And I said, Lord, what is that? And I realized, because I thought it was like an Emmy or a Grammy. And I looked closer, and it was a golden football. And I saw the Lord say, she's giving this. And as she gives it, she is creating a culture of champion women and others who are arising so that they can play their game and run their field, that they can cover their yards, that they can walk into their destiny, and that they can be liberated to actually play. And I saw out of this place of this field, I saw that there's actually a grace for what I believe is spaces of relationship that become communities that empower each other to arise. And I saw motivation moving into the inspiration, moving into the instigation of people moving into these spaces where there's almost this statement of, I want to say it's like I'm putting the song back over my home, where I'm taking it back. I'm taking back my place. And so, Eileen, I just believe that. And here's what I say every time, like I'll prophesy and stuff, right? Is that, I believe that those impressions about not only who you are, you're someone who's actually passing the championship ball to others. But not only are you passing the ball to others, I believe that you're not only a safe place, but you're a catalyst for women and communities that there's a spirit of a rising all over you.
So yes, when you guys had kids, you were still living like pretty much separately. Like you weren't necessarily headquartered in Green Bay when you had kids. Like you had kids. Like, how was that?
Yeah. So like, I mean, I was that independent. When Will came, he was like, I want an independent wife and so forth. And girl, I was just shining in that. Yeah, I'm independent. I got a career, this and that and so forth. But I did not understand that when he said he wanted an independent wife, and I will say this, that it evolved and reared its ugly head to unmask what it was his independence was also independent in the marriage. We lived basically together, but he lived a double life. We had that life at home that looked and seemed, I mean, it had its problems, but, and then there was the other life, the life of that he truly desired.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I maintained working, and I'm so grateful that I did and kept my independence. But even though having that independence and trying to also try to prove that I'm worthy, that I can uphold my end of the deal, that I'm not a gold digger. So that's one thing. Trying to prove constantly, as you said in the beginning, your motive for marrying these people. They don't understand that you're marrying somebody for love. The first thing is she marrying him for his money? This, that, so forth. When Will announced, the first things everybody said was she pregnant? No. You know what I'm saying? Dude, is she pregnant? I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So, but even at the time that Will and I met, I'm 7 years older than him. So when I met Will, I done everything that I possibly wanted to do. Traveled the world, did all of that stuff, had a fantastic career to take care of myself. What I was doing was the next step, adding to. I thought I found the most amazing person to build my future with. And at the same time, I thought that that's what he wanted too. Yeah.
I'm thinking of what you're saying. And I think, because I remember having that mentality, is trying to prove yourself, like it's like you're performing just as much as they are. So you're performing so that you're getting the approval of your spouse to go, look, yeah, like you said, like you're like, I'm keeping my end of the bargain. I'm the independent wife that you want. Like, can you love me because I'm doing these things for you? So not only that, I just remember how I had to, in the back of my mind, it was always this trying to prove, because same thing, I'm 4.5 years older. And same thing, like, who is this older woman coming into the scene? And it was like, oh, poor Kabir, like he's going to get duped. And so this was that vibe that, is there, that you just feel like, okay, I'm trying to be a good wife. I'm trying to get his approval. And all the while I'm trying to make it known that I'm not the gold digger in this. It's so weird, like those different things that you think of,
Even the family dynamic of having to pull out so here's the funny thing. I'm sitting here and I'm being called gold digger from the family, like, where's she coming from, this, that, to the point that I pull out my W-2. But then I'm sitting here as I reflect later, why did I have to go ahead and prove myself to somebody that I'm making six figures who isn't even out there working their darn self? You know how little we just diminish ourselves.
Yeah.
We just make ourselves so small to prove ourselves. And that's what I felt like I was doing throughout the marriage, not only just to the fans, but the family, everybody, the friends, all of that I was proving that I belonged there and was worthy of that spot. And what I ended up realizing is that carried throughout my marriage and probably put me in the position that I was in, and probably was the reaction to everybody like, what do you mean you're getting divorced? I thought that you were okay with all of this. You know what I'm saying? So we set ourselves up because we're trying to be worthy, and what I've realized is it shouldn't have been me proving that I'm worthy of that position. That perhaps had he given as much as I did, that he'd be worthy of my love. So we short sell ourselves and think that what we get is what we deserve and that we have to prove and beg and ask for that. Somebody that really loves you, you don't have to do that. But that's a learning lesson that we find out.
Mm-hmm. That,
Yes.
super
good. Yeah. I was in it for the happily ever after. I was in it because I loved him and I wanted that ultimate love story. I was at the place where I could give all of that. But then when you marry somebody that has self-love and you don't know that, then you end up years being stolen.
Yeah, I just think about the years being stolen. I think, gosh, like how much our energy and our mental and emotional like health is caught up in things that don't matter. Like when you're talking about proving yourself, I mean, it's like, yeah, like I'm his wife, even if I don't work a day in my life. And if that's an agreement that you and your spouse, because that was the case with me and my ex, it's like, we came to this agreement that I wouldn't be working, and that was our agreement. We don't need to answer to anybody, and you didn't need to answer to anybody. And it's like, oh my gosh, like how much time have we spent being preoccupied by pleasing other people who we're never going to please because they're always going to have their thoughts, right? They're always going to have their judgments. And then it's also like, okay, if you're so concerned, just like you said, you're concerned that she is making her money, why? It's like they're revealing themselves. And there's a point where I'm going to have to let go of my boys. And that will not be easy. I'm praying for that. And I know, thank God, that I have, because of the right mindset and because of the Bible and knowing what God says, I look at it as gaining 7, daughters, because I only have 1. So I'm looking in a way of that it's not going to be an intimidating relationship or a replacement of it's an addition. I really have to say quickly. So I had this just happened last week. I had one of my kids just had some friends over, girls and guys. And so this kid is 15. So it's a bunch of freshmen at my house, and they're in the kitchen and they're eating, and I'm in this like side room, and one by one, my other boys come in. So I've got a bunch of freshmen in my kitchen. Then my 20-year-old walks in, and I'm looking at their eyes. And then my 18-year-old walks in. Then my 16-year-old walks in. And even my 13-year-old, who is getting calls from girls. All of a sudden, I'm just thinking, okay, this is new. And it was like, I always knew, like, I've got some great looking dudes, and I literally say, hey, go model, do something, like make some money with how good looking they are. But I saw it in a whole different way, where I was thinking, all right, I am really, like, my head was on a swivel in a good way. It was just like I was giggling. I was literally talking to my 15-year-old who saw it too afterwards. We're like, oh my gosh. He's like, yeah, they were squealing as each boy walked in. And then I'm thinking, man, like when my daughter brings her girlfriends over, they're going to have those same reactions. And then I'm thinking of the dude that comes to see my daughter, and he is going to be totally intimidated because he's going to have 7 boys. Well, they're not going to be around all of them, but they better guard their sister. So just all these things. But anyways, going back to, the mother-in-law thing, like I said, I totally get it. But to help these younger women navigate through it from the lens that I have now, I just think that it would be such a place of like understanding. I know for me with the mother-in-law stories, I'm going to save those stories, but I will say that it wasn't easy to navigate through to, even the way that we got married. We didn't have a big wedding because things weren't right in the sense of just having their blessings, and we wanted to be obedient to God. So we got married right away in the middle of October, hoping to have a bigger wedding. That just never happened, and all these things. So I do talk about relationship dynamics, not only with a mother-in-law, but that's a huge part of it. But again, putting boundaries with families, understanding your role as stewards for God's finances. So I talk about that in another chapter. I talk about my own shopping addiction. So I used it as a place of numbing. Actually, here, so hopefully you'll get my book so that you can read more of the stories. But I don't own a Louis Vuitton, and I would like to. Well, no, not that I'd like to. Not worth it to me, I guess. Now, if I saw one that was super cute, and it's not that even, I just don't have anywhere to go. Let's put it that way. So I am not knocking you if you have one. Like, if I used it, I would probably get one. But this is how I was back then. When I was an NFL wife, I was in my mid-20s, I was judgmental in the sense of like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to spend that much money on a purse. Like, how dare they? Or, like they're wasteful, or, I never probably said it out loud, but I thought it in my head. And so I never bought a purse that was thousands of dollars, but I would look for, so before I was married, person maybe, a Dooney and Burke purse, one of those. And so they were like a couple hundred, and I would always look for sales. And so what I would do is I would justify, well, I'm not buying a purse for thousands and thousands of dollars, but let me buy a lot of purses for hundreds of dollars. That's really what it turned out to be, is that I would not get high price items, but I would get a lot of lower ticket items. And I would spend hours looking for deals and discounts and flash sales and all these things. And so I would consume my time in order to have a deal or to, pay less for something, which pretty much, like everything else, like collected dust on the shelf of my closet. So I will have to say, if I didn't have a daughter, I would have gotten rid of these purses a long time ago, because there's no need for them. But you know how the world is, and you know how like things come back into style. So I'm keeping these things for my daughter. That's really like the only thing that, like some, of course I'm using some, but there's tons and tons that I did give away to friends, but tons that I still have. And so, like I said, like I'm just going to keep them for my daughter. And so in that, as I talk about my shopping addiction, I talk about why. I talk about the root. I talk about the root of addictions. And I talk about how, for me, I numbed pain of loneliness. I numbed the pain of a lack of purpose. I knew I was a mom, obviously, like, I had so many, and I loved it. But there were definitely times where I was like, gosh, like God knows that he created me. Like I love ministering to women. I love encouraging women, helping people out, specifically women. It probably came from the heart of the fact that like I didn't know my value growing up. And so I brought up, the fact that I was like, that promiscuity thing came from the fact that I didn't know my value. And I saw how I was a naive college girl who showed parts and dressed a certain way and was flattered by these guys who literally looked at me as an object. And so my heart goes out to young women that don't see that. And then now, like just in the different phases of life, going before someone and looking at them going, oh man, like I see what you don't see yet. I want to help you. Oh my gosh, like, can I share with you? So we kind of have a long history in all this. It's been like, I don't even know how many, at least 5 years.
Yeah, it's been, almost, it would be almost 5, because the incident that you're referencing where I first learned about what was going on with Kabir and what was happening in your marriage and in his personal life and his spiritual life was at the end of December of 2019 is when that happened. And so at the time, I now work for ESPN, but at the time I was a journalist for Sports Illustrated, and I was covering the NFL, and One of my editors sent me a local story that was in the Green Bay Press Gazette, which was very strange. And I should have it in front of me right now. I don't, but it was essentially a story about Kabir having a run-in with law enforcement in Green Bay. And he wasn't arrested, but two of his friends were arrested. And the reason they were arrested is that they were trespassing at the Christmas program that your children were part of. Their school, their private Christian school, has a Christmas program every year. And your kids were in the program, and Kabir was not happy with them being in the program because he had moved away from Christianity. He wasn't calling himself a Christian anymore. He felt like Christmas was a pagan holiday now. So he didn't want his kids to be participating in this. But at the time, you guys had already separated. You weren't living like correct me if I'm wrong, but you weren't like living together at the time. And so he was kind of lightly threatening the school's principal earlier that day and earlier that week about his kids being involved in that Christmas program. And so that night, so earlier that day, the principal had already called the police to tell them, hey, I've had some uncomfortable conversations with Kabir. I don't think anything's going to happen, but like, could you just be ready? Like, in case I call you, just have this on your radar. Our program is tonight. It's at this location, et cetera. So then that night, the school principal recognized two men who he knew were friends with Kabir in the audience of the church. And he was uncomfortable with that because he knows that they're not parents of any kids at the school, and he felt like they were there because Kabir told them to be there. And he wasn't sure why they were there. And also in a phone call with Kabir earlier that day, Kabir had said to him, and Kabir has confirmed to me that he said this, so I'm comfortable saying it, but Kabir said to the school principal, like, you don't need to worry about me. Black people don't shoot up schools. White people do. And Kabir's friends were white men. Right. So naturally, the school principal is jumping to the absolute worst possible conclusion. And so he calls the police ask them to leave. They're refusing to leave. There's kind of a little scene. It turns out they both were carrying guns and they didn't have a license to carry. And this is a children's event. Like, this is an event basically it's not at a school, but it's a school event.
Like, I want to fill you in. So this is probably something that you don't know. So So I get there with my kids, right? And they're walking in, they're about to be a part of the program. My daughter was not part of the program. I think she was young. She was too young for that. Anyway, she says, hey mom, can I sit with my friends? And I said, okay, sure. I walked to the front of the church across, part of those pews. And where she was gonna sit was the same row as the two guys. And I didn't know. And so people are coming up to me going, like, all of a sudden it's like, I'm coming into this scene, like, all happy-go-lucky. And then people are coming to me and saying, these two guys from the cult are here. The fact that I am finally going, you know what, Lord, you've called me to be a helpmate for him. I'm his helper. And it's not my place to scrutinize, to nag, to like say, hey, you better come through for all the things that were lacking in my past relationship. It's like I feel like I'm coming differently to my spouse to be the support that he needs. And it's totally coming in a way that I've not been before. And I hate to say that, but I mean, I thought I was, but I was definitely more guarded and more like losing my like feminine, like gentle, quiet spirit, which God loves. So I just look and I'm like, gosh, and I know that it's not that it's not that you don't have any issues at all, but this is
right, because I don't have a quiet spirit all the time. I'm just gonna put that out there. Honey, we're all a work in progress.
Yeah.
Much prayer, honey. Much prayer.
But you guys are a team, and you know
we
it.
Are
and
a
I love
team.
it.
Yes, we are a team through and through, for sure. Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I like to talk about the fun things, like, I mean, like style. And I told you I talked about this with Emily. So Emily's coming from Midwest. I'm coming from California. For me, it was more of like, okay, how do I deal with the cold? Because I can't stand cold. And so it was great to finally, like, the first couple of years I'm outside keeping warm. I didn't care. But then, it was someone had a suite we never purchased or we never had any like suite of our own, or if we didn't go in with other players. But like, yeah, in our chintzy way, he was on this radio show where I always got to go into their suite. So for sure, for me, it was like, oh my gosh, I can finally dress cute. I can wear like heels and not like have this big old parka or the hunting gear that a lot of other people wear. Like, what was your transition of throughout the years? Like, what do you see? Like what was your style in the beginning? You know, how did you, because so for us, and not many people can talk about this, but most, as we know, most careers are like 2 to 3 years. So you, what was it, 10? You said 14 years?
14 years. Yeah.
Wow. And on one team.
One team.
That's huge. No wonder, like, yeah, like, and I said, Donald's always going to be a fan favorite. And I love, I mean, you have no idea, like, the fact that you guys are together and you see your kids growing up. Like, this truly is, like, you guys are an amazing, like, story. So definitely you're all, like, you know, your family's a favorite.
Yeah.
So yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So style and things like that. Like, how did you see things growing up?
Gosh, okay. Let me see. I think we were outside for several years, or I was, because we didn't have kids when I first moved there and got married. But I was sitting outside for a while, and when it started getting cold, I just didn't go to the games.
Oh, you didn't go at all.
I just didn't go to the games. And he wasn't really playing much our first few years. So why would I go to the game? You know?
Yes, for sure.
Especially in zero below weather.
Yes.
But style wise, okay, I can understand you said when you were inside, you want to dress cute. Yeah, of course you did. That's what we do, you know. That's that's
Yeah.
but I don't think my style changed because I went to a black college. We always dress cute. We always dressed
Okay.
up going to games. So that was nothing new. That was the culture back then.
Yes.
So it was a show when we go to football games. I was in the band, so I never had that opportunity to dress up. But
Mhm.
when I did, I wore my boots, I wore my heels. It was an ordeal to get ready for a game. You just
Okay.
didn't put on a Packer jersey and go. Now, when I had kids, things changed. I
Okay.
did start wearing a Packers jersey. I did put on lower boots and not heels because your priorities just shift. And
Yeah.
toward the end of our career, we did have a box. So he wanted the kids there. So that was our thing. And
Mhm.
style wasn't a big priority because I had the kids with me and I was running around with them.
You know, he is debating me, debating my Christianity. And during this time, we're developing a friendship. So he's done as a college athlete. He's getting ready for the NFL. I'm helping him more because what happened was after his season, he's getting ready for the NFL. He had to put on about 15 pounds. And so what my job was, with my boss giving me the assignment, hey, I want you to acclimate him to the weight gain. So we had to go running more. We had to do stuff more together. So we established more of a friendship. During this time, no intention, nothing. Like there was nothing there. I didn't see him like that at all. And over time and friendship, it was like, okay, like, Lord, you know what? I'm getting tempted. I actually was like, Lord, take him out of my life. Like, if you want someone to witness to him, don't use me, use a man. And so during that time, he, like, God kind of answered my prayers. Here he goes to Green Bay. We're still friends. We weren't anything. And, there were times to be honest, yeah, like we were tempted. There were times when we did stuff, but I was like, no, like, I don't want to do this. He's not a Christian. I don't want that kind of relationship. He goes to Green Bay. He gets saved. And during that time, so this is like his second year in the league. And all of a sudden it's like, he's we're seeing that, oh my gosh, like what was a friendship is turning into something more, and we're seeking God on this, and so he is saying to me, we went through premarital counseling. So gosh, I don't want to age myself, but whatever. this is the summer of 2001 where, like we both are realizing, oh, okay, God, like you have more for us. Like I just knew that God was saying he's the one. And so, we're having premarital counseling. We're both agreed, let's get married after the season. And after, the 2001 season, he goes to training camp. He's calling me up and saying, Eileen, I need you out here. We need to get married now. And if you know his personality, he's very persistent. And I'm like, hey, I can't go until I know God. And that's my thing. It's like, I have to hear from God about major decisions. I wish I would do that with all decisions. And unfortunately, I don't. But this is obviously a major decision. And so I was like, I can't go out of pressure. I need to know that God is saying it's time to go. And I said, if I do go out of pressure, and when we fall into hard times, I'll resent you. I'll be unsure, so all those things. And so it's interesting. I said that to him. And 2 weeks later, I remember waking up on a Tuesday morning and I knew God was saying it's time to go. And I put my 2-week resignation in. I give it to my boss who had no idea what was going on. He didn't know that there was any sort of relationship dynamics except friendship with me and my ex. And no one knew. And we weren't trying to be secretive. There was just nothing to talk about, like we just didn't think anything was there. And so as we're announcing, hey, we're going to get married, it was like a shock to everybody. And at the same time, the people that knew us, as shocking as it was like, oh, okay. And it was, there was support there. The thing was with the people that didn't know us or that didn't know, one was his parents, a lot of people on his side of things, which of course is understandable, protective people, his high school coach, different people that didn't know me, his parents, they're thinking from their point of view, because they didn't realize we were friends for over 4 years, that we knew each other for over 4 years. They're thinking, wait, okay, our son, this guy is all of a sudden he's blowing up in the NFL. Who's this older person? Because I'm 4.5 years older. Who is this older person that's coming on the scene? And so according to people that didn't know me, there was a fear that I was this gold digger. And so here, as we're wanting to be obedient, like I said, like I didn't want to get married then. I wanted to work with my athletes during that fall season. I wanted to obey the Lord. And so when I knew God was saying it's time to go, I stopped everything. I left my family, I left my church, I left my job, I left all the things that I knew that was about me. I left all that out of obedience to the Lord. And here, I'm choosing to get married, and it was supposed to be a celebration, but I knew that with the people that didn't know us, there was almost like this like somber spirit, like, oh my gosh, like it was scary to them. Again, I understand because they didn't know me, and like, shoot, I can understand if same thing happened to one of my kids and all of a sudden just that same situation. I understand. As if you are a pro athlete wife or an ex or a girlfriend or whatever, I know that you understand what I'm saying when it comes to that whole thing with the mother-in-law. There's definitely mother-in-law stories. There's concerns. Again, this is your baby. Totally get it. And so with that, we chose to be obedient to the Lord. And we also chose, okay, we're not going to have a big wedding right now. Let's do it right. That was our main focus. And so we got married during the season. I literally get on a plane. I arrived to Green Bay at 11 a.m. We're married by 5 p.m. So obviously no big wedding. It was a side chapel. It didn't know anybody. Like it was like 2 guys on the team. A pastor at the time I didn't know. And so that whole thing of like, okay, this is not about me. This is about being obedient to the Lord and honoring God and doing things the right way. And the whole concept about not about me is it takes, there's just different journeys with that theme. And so this is what I'm going to continue to tell you. So that's what happened in October of 2001. As I get there, I realize it's not about me. This is about him. This is his world. I'm now just a wife at the time because I didn't know anybody. I didn't have purpose. I didn't know what I was doing. I literally was like, okay, Lord, like my role is to be wife. Like, show me how. Soon after that, we got pregnant. And so this whole thing of like, oh, we're gonna have a big wedding, like, we kind of were like, okay, we have to put that off longer. And so in 2002, December of 2002, we had our firstborn. So and there's reasons for this. Like, we had him after midnight. So this is December 1st of 2002.
The distributor was the largest gun distributor in the world. And guess what? They never tested their guns before they distributed them.
Oh my
So
gosh.
this policeman had distributed weapons to sporting goods stores through the distributor. They had never been tested. The gun ended up being defective. So
Wow.
we filed a lawsuit with the gun distributor. Now, when my company found out that we had a third-party subrogation, guess what they did? They rewrote their benefit book and they added third-party subrogation. So they went after our lawsuit and Jeff and I personally
Oh my
and
gosh.
put liens on everything we had. This is the company that I worked for.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So now I'm in another conundrum.
So things are looking good.
Job.
And then, oh my gosh.
I can't leave my job. I need work. So all of these things just kept snowballing into one after another, after another, after another, to a point where we ended up filing bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, our suit with the NFL, the first one, was coming up we thought at first from 1981 to 1984, we kept getting turned down by the NFL saying he could do sedentary work, a word that we have heard throughout history since 1981, that these players can't get disability because they can do sedentary work. And we heard it at the congressional hearings when I was there and testified and all that stuff. So sedentary work was why they kept turning us down. So
they basically wanted him to be unable to do anything.
But he could work 3 or 4 hours a day, maybe, with his disabilities. So I ended up going back to the NFL and I asked for the meeting recordings of the minutes, and then I would be happy to fly to Washington and sit there with them and tell them all about my husband and bring all of my stuff. Oh, no, you can't do that. So they couldn't not give me the minutes. So in the last group of minutes with Vince Lombardi and Gene Upshaw, who Jeff had played with, who was supposed to come testify, that later shafted him. And we loved Gene, but he had just become president of the Players Union. So you know where he went with that. And the Players Union, they said, well, let's just end this with Jeff. Let's take him to arbitration. So at that time, we said, okay, because we knew he was disabled. None of the neurocognitive problems had come into play yet, but we knew he had lots of physical disabilities, from his neck to his back, to his knees, to his ankles had been crushed. He had had multiple injuries. And so I requested a new attorney, a new arbitration attorney, and I went down the list, and guess who was on there? Alan Page.
Who's that?
Alan Page was a Minnesota Viking, one of the greatest players of all time, a Hall of Famer. Alan had now become an attorney.
Oh, wow.
With Lindquist and Venom, which was one of the NFL company attorney groups that they were using. And so we got Alan. And the day of the deposition in San Francisco, the goofball attorney that the player union had given us said, I don't really think I need to be there. We don't want to go in to the NFL and intimidate them. So my husband and Alan Page go in, and the NFL and the Oakland Raiders bring in 6 attorneys.
Wow.
And we won. We won total and permanent. Sam Cagle, the arbitrator, came back and said, Jeff is totally and physically disabled. 4 months later, we have the gunshot accident. We were on line of duty for $870 a month for 60 months. We never saw total and permanent, because then they came back when he had to go 1 year. Every year you had to go for a neutral physician report in front of a neutral physician that was hired by the NFL. So he was living in a hospital bed. He couldn't go. So I called Mickey Davis and she said, well, we can extend it for 60 days. So we extended it for 60 days. We wheeled him in a wheelchair out of one over to another. And they came back and said he was no longer disabled from football. He was disabled from the gunshot accident. And they pulled the line of duty and took away his total and permanent. So we had to start all over. And my husband looked at me and said, you are effing crazy, woman. And I said, let me tell you something. I don't care if we get a penny, but we are going to fight not for the future of our family. We're going to fight for the future of these other freaking players. Because this is wrong. This is so wrong. How can they do that? They can't do this. And so we started fighting, and we fought, and we fought. And then they came back in 1989. In 1988, we ended up with the bankruptcy trustee. I left my company and I said, I want to go home. I want to go back to Florida. We have nothing here. It's time to start over. Meanwhile, in between we had filed $1.5 million lawsuit with the gun distributor. By the time my company, my attorney, we ended up with $155,000. And the trustee and the judge, the day we went to bankruptcy, let us keep that. So we had something to move here with and start over.
Wow.
And then in 1989, we were able to get non-football related disability pension, which was back to the $870, and we got $100 extra for Travis.
Wow.
I address it in my books, both my books. There's way more books that are deeper to give you understanding. But that was another part of the feasting where I went from the grapes to the appetizers to, okay, I got to pull off, the big turkey leg and bite into that. And there's some areas of a spiritual walk where I didn't even want to. Like, I've heard of different concepts before. I heard about spiritual warfare and I thought I knew it, but it wasn't until I was in the thick of where I needed it that I was like, okay, I need whatever I can get. Let me eat this. And so I thought, Lord, I went through this crazy stuff. Like, if I can get through like this person who I'm one with, and I can get through that and forgive him and move on and, like remarry, like, Lord, I'm good. Like, there's the glory to glory. And he's still not done. The glory to glory continues. And so that's, like I said, I can keep going with the different, oh my gosh, I can keep going with the different ways that God has taken me from glory to glory. I can share with you all like the places where I've grown. I invite you to my journey because I want you to get excited, because at the times that we're in, you are going to have to know how to be equipped. And I'm saying that not in it because if you're seeing this in video, you're seeing my face of like excitement and joy, because I know that this world is getting crazier literally by the second. And so when I say I invite you, because you're going to need it, it is an excitement that I say that. For sure, we're going to need different weapons, but this is a journey that there's nothing that compares to knowing God and coming alongside him and going from glory to glory, like increasing from like, it's like promotion, like you, when I had mentioned this word in the beginning, authority, like you go from this place of authority. And when God gets you through something, he gets you to another place of authority where you can speak into someone's life, or you can talk about this, or you can know, like, I've been there before. I've had victory in this. I know how to war in a battle against a situation. I can do it again.
And so I am inviting you to that space too, where you just see this. And so whatever denomination you are, if you're a strong Christian and you think, hey, I know what I know and I'm good, I invite you to be open, because God wants to take you from glory to glory. God wants to use you in ways that you didn't know. And I'm saying that out of experience. I'm saying that because I get excited and just think like, wow, Lord, you never cease to amaze me. And not gonna lie, even in the places where he takes you from one level of glory to another, one level of promotion to another, it is definitely through trials, definitely counting all joy, fall into various trials, knowing that they will produce character, perseverance, patience. And so those are glory to glory. It's him saying, okay, you're here during this trial. I'm going to grow you. I'm going to increase your faith. I'm going to give you wisdom and knowledge and insight you've not had before. And so be open, be expectant, be excited for this feast, no matter where you are. No shame. And that's another thing. I will end it with this. Like, I know people that, like, it's just second nature that if I share something with them and I share, okay, this is what God want to do. This is what God wants to do with you. Or this is, the Bible says this. It's like a shame comes on them for not knowing that. And so someone will go, yeah, I know I should have done that. Or I'm such a bad this, or I'm such a bad mom. So many of us women do that, which is totally a lie and totally from the devil. When you learn something and you're going through a process, it's a process. It's the renewing of the mind. It's going from glory to glory. So it's stuff that it's just like exercising. I always go back to the exercising stuff that, you're working out, it's sore, you don't want to come back, but you do it. You're breaking the muscle fibers only to keep them growing and increasing in number so that you're stronger. It's the same concept, the same thing. And so going from glory to glory. Yeah, hopefully you guys are being blessed by this podcast, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Until next time, love well, celebrate your strength, and discover the new things you are capable of. You are a light in the lives of those around you, and no night is too dark for you to find your way.